g'day. How you going? What do you know? We'll strike a light. G'day, g'day. And how you going? Just say g'day, 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 and you'll be right.
In today's End Times Prophecy Update, there's several main things just to share with you, or what's been brewing in the Middle East and some other things that are going on a social, societal issue. We saw the other day out of the Jerusalem Post, the Iran proxies reportedly developing missile production in Iraq. Not surprising, but they're using these other proxy groups within Iraq who have been funded and are training and weapons supplied by Tehran. So that way people can't go right into Iran and say, here's what they're doing. They're using other outside sources and countries, and like we see here in Iraq. And so the Iran regime has reportedly begun over the last few months to transfer ballistic missiles to these proxies in Iraq. It's also reported developing the capability for the proxy militants to produce their own missiles inside Iraq. So it's getting closer and closer. And again, their goal is to use these weapons against Israel and other threatening countries. But it's just that whole development of what Iran's doing behind the scenes, their presence in Syria as well. But just within their region, again, another report out of Reuters talks about how Iran puts on a show of strength military exercise in the Gulf. So they carried out a joint aerial military drill on Friday, and what official media indicated pounding reply awaiting the country's enemies. So Tehran suggests in recent weeks it could take military action in the Gulf to block other countries' oil exports in retaliation for U.S. Sanctions intended to halt sales of crude oil. And this is a major issue. It would halt and bring countries to its knees because we're so dependent upon the oil coming out of the Middle East. Everything's dependent upon in the transportation industry, trucking, our cars, airlines, you name it, is dependent upon the oil refineries there and oil. So this would certainly be a major tension issue globally if Iran does this. So not only would there probably be more sanctions, but there can eventually be an all-out war in the nth degree. Not saying that is going to happen, but you can see the tensions rising up even more. On another issue with Israel, again, they make the statement out of the Israeli national news. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the ceremony marking the 75th anniversary of Yom Kippur War on Wednesday, saying Israel will continue to work toward preventing an outbreak of another major conflict in the region, while adding that the IDF will not hesitate to use full force if war does break out. There's a constant threat from Hezbollah in the north, with all their hundreds of thousands of rockets aiming toward Israel. You have Hamas, you have the Palestinians. Of course, you've got the issue of the encroachment of Russia and Iran in Syria. So there's a constant threat about them, but they're not going to back down. If it comes to push to shove, they will defend, they will protect, they will do what they need to do. And as we already knew that earlier this week, they had jet fighters that took out some of the areas within Damascus, the airport there, where there was where the Iran was trying to have some warehouses where they would put some of their weaponry. And so they end up taking that out earlier this week. But we continue to see how Israel will constantly be monitored, attacked, criticized for what they do. On a separate issue, and again, as we talk about the filter grid, we also talk about technology that's happening and developing. And this is one of those other areas where you're seeing just the growth and the development of where government can monitor and keep track of every person. This was an interesting report out of the USA Today that talks about Delta. It says Atlanta Airport will feature USA's first biometric terminal. So the whole facial recognition system, and again, on some of the new phones, they have this facial recognition system. But the way you're seeing the phone companies, Google, Facebook, everything's being tracked these days. Every movement that people are doing, whether you're a threat or not, everything's going into a data control center to keep track and tabs on people. So So they're going to be unveiling this particular terminal in Atlanta with facial screening technology. So they're just taking it to another level. Because right now, when you go into every country, you stand before you have a photo taken that goes into a database. So this is going to be a little quicker in some of the information gathering systems. So just an interesting thing on technological issue. And then lastly, there's two issues on the societal issue. One was kind of interesting to see, but not surprising when you see the decline of a nation, like Ireland, for example, how they had a report that talked about their plans to offer abortion for free. So their ban officially repealed where they had to pay, or where they were saying that the goal is to ensure access to make sure women aren't forced to travel for the procedure according to their health minister. So now you're starting to see even more of a decline of the vision and values of a country, the moral depravity of a country where say now you can have free abortions. Continue with the promiscuity. Doesn't matter because there's abortion places where you can, if something does happen. So you're seeing that's taking place, and you see other countries will probably take similar, direction in the same way. And then another interesting report, this came out of the Time website, that talks about how drugs and alcohol and suicide are killing so many young Americans that the country's average lifespan is failing and falling. And it's not just there, it's around the world. We're starting to see more decline and more deaths from alcohol, drugs, and suicide like never before. In this particular study, primarily, again, they were keeping tabs, but it was most of the development came out of the 2014-2016, where they're keeping tracks of what was going on. And just in the U.S. alone, drug overdose killed more than, and I'm going to estimate it close to over 63,000, almost 64,000 deaths during that year, just in drug overdose. Among the ages of 24 to 35, it rose 25% each year between 2014 and 2016. So you're seeing this is a major epidemic. Alcohol, major public health concern. Liver disease replaced HIV as the sixth leading killer of adults between ages of 25 and 44 in 2016. And then suicide, is nearly on the rise in every demographic age group, from 14 and under, even all the way up through 25 to 45 or 44. You're seeing just a massive growth there, percentages increasing every single year. And here in Australia, it's like many other countries, these stats are very similar. They just had a report on this there. And it is a major mental health issue when it comes down to it. That is a major contributing factor here. And not coping, not dealing with things, plus certain individual lifestyle choices are also part of the problem. And we're seeing just so many deaths occurring. And some of you know I work part-time job picking up dead bodies and taking them to the morgue. And we're seeing so many different cases on a regular basis. Even obesity is a major factor of so many deaths on a daily basis. But we're seeing such a decline of society, the values, the morals, the depression, and many other mental health issues. And when you even look at all the mass shootings that have happened in the U.S. alone, the number one issue there was mental health issues. That was primarily the case when they got down to the bottom line, not just a person with a gun, but the problems that person was struggling with for a number of years. And so it's so important to get the help when people are struggling, and to come alongside people, to check in, to help them, those that are perhaps struggling. And this is where we need to come together as a church and as a body of Christ around the world, to come alongside, to help people, encourage people, and to give the hope. And again, Jesus is the hope for all people. He's the answer to all of life's questions and problems. There is forgiveness and there is grace with Jesus. And the key, again, is to surrender our life to Him, our circumstances, our situations to Him, and He will give us the strength. He will give us the grace and the wisdom to work through whatever we're going through. And again, we have a family in the body of Christ to help each other out. So it's just one of those keeping pulse of what's going on in society and the technology. So all these are a part of what we're seeing as a decline, living in the last days. And that's it for today's update.